A single moment can change the direction of a conversation, a relationship, or even a reputation. People often believe the fastest reply is the strongest one. Psychology shows something very different. Calm silence can create more influence than endless words. A controlled expression can speak louder than an emotional reaction. Every time someone pushes your emotions, they gain valuable information about your fears, your limits, and your next move. The person who stays steady keeps that information private. That simple difference has shaped powerful negotiations, difficult relationships, and important decisions throughout history. Quiet self-control has often turned the balance of power without a single raised voice. That is why the strongest response is sometimes the one nobody expects. Arguments usually become larger because each side feels a need to prove a point. Defending every accusation, answering every insult, or correcting every misunderstanding feels natural. Yet psychology suggests that constant explanation can slowly reduce personal authority. Emotional reactions often reveal more than words ever could. People read facial expressions, tone of voice, pauses, and frustration within seconds. Those silent signals become valuable clues. Someone who understands human behavior knows exactly how to use those clues. Very few people realize this hidden exchange is happening during everyday conversations. Real influence begins long before anyone notices it. This video explores 7 powerful psychological principles that explain why strategic restraint can become one of the greatest strengths a person develops. Every principle is based on patterns of human behavior that appear in workplaces, friendships, families, and everyday social situations. You will discover why silence creates curiosity, why constant explanation can weaken your position, why emotional control changes the way people see you, and why selective attention protects both confidence and peace of mind. You will also learn why certain individuals become frustrated when they fail to receive the reaction they expected, along with the surprising reason patient observation often reveals more truth than direct confrontation. Several of these ideas remain misunderstood because popular advice usually encourages immediate responses instead of thoughtful restraint. As this journey continues, every lesson connects with the next one, revealing a complete system of emotional discipline that can quietly transform the way people interact with you. The final principle brings everything together in a way that surprises even those who believe they already understand confidence. Missing a single part means missing an important piece of the entire psychological puzzle. By the end of this video, you will see everyday conflicts from a completely different perspective and understand why real strength rarely needs loud words or dramatic actions to prove itself. Welcome to our channel, where psychology, human behavior, and practical self-mastery come together through simple ideas that create lasting impact. If you enjoy learning hidden psychological principles that help you think clearly, build stronger boundaries, and understand people on a deeper level, subscribe now and become part of our growing community. Let us begin with the first principle that quietly separates emotional reactions from genuine personal power. Every interaction carries an invisible emotional current. Sometimes people speak with kindness, while other times their words seem carefully placed to spark frustration, guilt, or anger. Psychology explains this through emotional triggers. An emotional trigger is anything that quickly activates a strong feeling before the logical part of the mind has enough time to evaluate the situation. Some people create these triggers on purpose because they want attention, control, or reassurance. Others do it without even realizing it because they learned through experience that emotional reactions bring results. A dramatic comment, a careless insult, a confusing message, or even complete silence can become a trigger. The goal is often the same. It pulls your focus away from clear thinking and toward an emotional response. Once emotions take control, the conversation usually follows a different path than the one you originally intended. Attention itself is a powerful reward. Human beings naturally seek recognition because the brain responds positively when it receives social feedback. This is why arguments can continue long after the original issue has disappeared. Every reply keeps the exchange alive. Every emotional reaction signals that the other person's words still hold influence over your thoughts. For someone who craves attention, even negative attention can feel satisfying because it confirms that they still have your focus. This pattern appears in personal relationships. workplaces, online discussions, and even casual conversations between strangers. A single emotional response can unintentionally encourage the same behavior to happen again, because the brain learns that the strategy successfully captured your attention. Over time, this cycle becomes stronger, making future interactions even more emotionally charged. The greatest cost of reacting immediately is usually hidden from view. Strong emotions narrow attention and reduce careful judgment. Instead of observing the full situation, the mind begins searching for quick ways to defend pride, prove a point, or remove discomfort. Decisions made during emotional intensity often ignore details that become obvious later. Words spoken in frustration can remain in someone's memory long after the feeling disappears. Meanwhile, the person who created the emotional trigger gains valuable information. They see which subjects affect you, how quickly your emotions change, and which buttons create the strongest response. Every visible reaction becomes another clue about your emotional patterns. People with strong emotional discipline understand that the first battle rarely happens during the conversation itself. It happens inside the mind during the first few seconds after a trigger appears. Those brief moments decide whether emotion or reason takes control. Instead of rushing toward the first response that comes to mind, they create a small space between the trigger and the action. That simple pause slows emotional momentum, allowing observation to replace impulse. This quiet habit becomes the foundation for every psychological principle that follows. Silence has a strange effect on human behavior because people often expect an immediate response. A quick reply feels normal, especially during disagreement or emotional moments. When that expected reaction never arrives, the entire dynamic begins to change. Psychology refers to this ability as emotional self-regulation. It is the skill of recognizing emotions without allowing them to control words or actions. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means remaining steady while emotions settle, giving the mind enough time to choose the best response instead of the fastest one. A calm person creates an atmosphere that feels difficult to influence through pressure alone. That quiet stability often communicates confidence more clearly than long explanations or emotional speeches. People naturally pay closer attention to someone who appears comfortable without rushing to fill every moment with words. Confidence is rarely measured by how much someone says. It is often measured by how comfortable someone feels saying less. Constant talking can sometimes send an unexpected message. It may suggest a need to prove intelligence, defend personal value, or gain approval. Silence sends a different signal. It shows that every word has been chosen with care instead of emotion. This changes the way others interpret your presence. During conversations, people often become uncomfortable with empty space. They begin speaking again, because the silence feels longer than it really is. As they continue talking, they frequently reveal extra details, hidden emotions, or opinions they never intended to share. A calm listener gathers information without asking endless questions. The conversation naturally unfolds because silence encourages the other person to keep filling the space. This pattern appears in negotiations, friendships, family discussions, and professional settings. Someone who remains calm while listening notices changes in tone, body language, hesitation, and choice of words. These small signals often reveal more than direct statements. Emotional excitement makes people overlook these details because their attention stays focused on preparing the next reply. Silence shifts attention away from speaking and toward observing. That simple change improves judgment because decisions are based on clearer information rather than emotional momentum. The person who listens carefully understands the situation more completely before deciding how to respond. Silence should never be confused with ignoring emotions forever. Healthy emotional self-regulation allows feelings to exist without placing them in control of every conversation. Anger, disappointment, excitement, and frustration all carry useful information. The difference lies in timing. A thoughtful response delivered after emotions settle usually creates more understanding than words spoken during emotional intensity. Choosing the right moment to speak transforms communication from a reaction into a deliberate decision. Once that habit becomes natural, silence stops feeling like weakness and begins functioning as one of the strongest forms of quiet confidence. One of the strongest habits that quietly weakens personal influence is the constant need to explain every choice, every opinion, and every action. It usually begins with good intentions. A person wants to be understood, avoid conflict, or clear up a misunderstanding. Yet psychology suggests that over-explaining often comes from something deeper than simple communication. It is frequently connected to the need for validation. Human beings naturally enjoy acceptance because it creates a sense of belonging and security. When someone feels responsible for making every person agree with every decision, that natural desire slowly turns into a habit of seeking approval. Instead of speaking with confidence, they begin collecting permission from others before feeling comfortable with their own choices. This pattern usually develops so gradually that it becomes difficult to notice. Every explanation feels reasonable on its own, yet together they create the impression that confidence depends on someone else's agreement. People who constantly justify themselves often believe they are increasing trust. In reality, the opposite can happen. Every extra explanation invites another question. Every detailed defense creates another opportunity for doubt. A simple decision suddenly becomes a debate because too much information encourages people to examine details that never needed discussion in the first place. Someone who speaks with quiet certainty usually appears more secure because their words reflect trust in their own judgment. This does not mean becoming secretive or refusing to communicate. It simply means recognizing that every decision does not require public approval. Confident people understand that disagreement is a normal part of life. They accept that every person views the world through different experiences, expectations, and beliefs. Because of this, they spend less energy trying to convince everyone and more energy acting according to their values. Healthy communication looks very different from constant self-defense. Clear communication shares information when it serves a purpose. It answers sincere questions, builds understanding, and strengthens relationships. Defending every decision, however, usually grows from fear that silence will be misunderstood. Ironically, endless explanations often create even more uncertainty because they suggest that the speaker is trying to prove something instead of simply stating the truth. Calm communications allow space for different opinions without feeling personally threatened by them. It recognizes that respect does not always require agreement. This mindset becomes especially valuable when dealing with criticism or judgment. Every opinion from another person does not deserve a detailed response. Some comments reflect curiosity, while others simply reflect personal preferences or assumptions. Learning to recognize the difference protects emotional energy and strengthens self-respect. Instead of measuring confidence by the number of people who approve of your choices, you begin measuring it by your ability to stand behind those choices with clarity, honesty, and quiet conviction. Speaking when communication truly adds value and remaining silent when explanation serves no meaningful purpose. Every day, your mind decides where to place its attention, even when you are unaware of it. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess because it shapes your thoughts, emotions, decisions, and overall well-being. Unlike time, attention can disappear within seconds without producing anything meaningful in return. A single negative comment can occupy your thoughts for hours. A careless remark can replay in your mind long after the conversation has ended. Psychology describes this process as selective attention. The brain cannot give equal focus to everything at once, so it constantly chooses which information deserves priority. The challenge is that emotional events naturally attract attention more easily than calm or neutral ones. This is why criticism, conflict, and provocation often feel much larger than they truly are. When every small irritation receives the same level of focus as a genuine problem, emotional energy becomes scattered across countless situations that add little value to your life. Some people understand this pattern, whether consciously or unconsciously. They know that gaining your attention gives them influence over your emotional state. A sarcastic comment, a dismissive gesture, or an unnecessary argument may have little importance by itself. Its real power appears only when you continue thinking about it long after the moment has passed. Every minute spent replaying a minor conflict is a minute that cannot be invested in personal growth, meaningful relationships, or thoughtful decisions. Choosing not to engage with every criticism is not a sign that you failed to notice it. It is a decision that your attention has greater value than the distraction being offered. This shift in thinking changes the way daily interactions affect you. Instead of feeling responsible for responding to every opinion, you become more intentional about where your mental energy goes. This does not mean every problem should be ignored. Real issues deserve honest conversations and direct action. A repeated pattern of disrespect, a serious misunderstanding, or behavior that damages trust should be addressed with clarity and confidence. Ignoring important situations simply allows them to grow. The real skill lies in recognizing the difference between a passing provocation and a meaningful concern. Minor provocations usually exist for a brief moment and lose their influence when they receive no emotional investment. Important problems continue affecting relationships, responsibilities, or personal values until they are resolved. Learning to separate these two situations prevents unnecessary conflict while ensuring that genuine concerns receive the attention they deserve. As emotional discipline grows, this distinction becomes easier to recognize. You stop treating every disagreement as an emergency and begin evaluating whether a response will actually improve the situation. Some words deserve a conversation, others deserve silence. Some battles create growth, others simply consume time and emotional strength without changing anything. Selective attention allows you to reserve your focus for people, goals, and decisions that truly matter, making every response a conscious choice instead of an automatic reaction driven by emotion. Strong emotions can feel convincing because they create a sense of urgency. Anger tells you to respond immediately. Fear pushes you to protect yourself as quickly as possible. Pride encourages you to prove a point before anyone questions your position. During these moments, every feeling appears completely justified. Psychology explains that emotional intensity changes the way the brain processes information. Instead of carefully examining the full situation, the mind begins focusing on the strongest emotional signal. Details that would normally seem important fade into the background. Small problems start looking much larger, while possible consequences receive less attention. This narrowing of judgment is one reason people often regret words spoken during moments of frustration. After emotions settle, the same situation frequently appears very different because logical thinking has returned to the conversation. Emotional regulation is the ability to recognize these feelings without allowing them to become the decision maker. It does not require ignoring emotions or pretending they do not exist. Every emotion carries useful information. Frustration may point toward unfair treatment. Fear may highlight genuine risk. Disappointment may reveal unmet expectations. The challenge begins when those emotions start directing behavior, before the mind has enough time to evaluate the facts. Emotional regulation creates a small gap between the feeling and the action. That brief pause may last only a few seconds, yet it often prevents decisions that create lasting damage. The strongest people are rarely those who feel the least emotion. They are usually the ones who manage those emotions with the greatest awareness. Creating this pause is a skill that becomes stronger through practice. Some people take one slow breath before speaking. Others silently count for a few moments, or ask themselves whether the response they are about to give will still feel appropriate tomorrow. Another effective habit is paying attention to physical signals. A faster heartbeat, tense muscles, or a raised voice often appear before impulsive actions follow. Recognizing these early signs gives the mind an opportunity to slow down before emotions fully take control. Even choosing to remain silent for a short moment can completely change the direction of a conversation, because it interrupts the automatic cycle of reaction. Calm thinking creates decisions that remain valuable long after the emotional moment has disappeared. A thoughtful response protects relationships, preserves credibility, and allows problems to be solved with greater clarity. Impulsive reactions often focus on winning the current moment, while calm decisions focus on achieving the best outcome over time. This difference becomes clear in personal relationships, professional settings, and everyday conversations. People who consistently regulate their emotions develop a reputation for stability because others know they respond with intention rather than impulse. That quiet consistency builds trust, strengthens judgment, and prepares the mind for the next psychological principle, where observation becomes even more valuable than immediate action. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they understand someone's intentions after a single conversation or one emotional moment. Human behavior is rarely that simple. Psychology places great importance on behavioral observation because actions repeated over time reveal far more than isolated events. A single promise may sound convincing, yet repeated broken promises tell a very different story. One kind gesture may create a positive impression, yet consistent kindness across different situations reveals genuine character. The same principle applies in the opposite direction. One careless comment does not always define a person, but a repeated pattern of disrespect often points toward a deeper habit. This is why careful observation becomes more valuable than immediate confrontation. Instead of reacting to the first thing you notice, you allow time to uncover the complete picture. People naturally reveal themselves through consistency. Their priorities appear in how they spend their time. Their respect becomes visible in how they treat others when no reward is expected. Their honesty becomes clearer when telling the truth feels uncomfortable. These patterns develop slowly, making them easy to overlook for someone focused only on words. Strong emotions can also interfere with accurate judgment. Excitement may cause you to overlook warning signs, while anger may cause you to see harmful intentions where none actually exist. Observation creates distance from these emotional extremes. It encourages you to collect facts before reaching conclusions. Every interaction becomes another piece of information rather than immediate proof of someone's character. Over time, those individual pieces form a much more reliable understanding than first impressions ever could. Patience plays an essential role in this process because genuine behavior is difficult to maintain through constant performance. Someone may present a carefully controlled image for a short period, yet everyday situations eventually expose natural habits. Pressure, disappointment, success, and unexpected challenges often reveal qualities that remain hidden during ordinary conversations. A patient observer notices how people respond across different circumstances instead of relying on one memorable event. This approach reduces unnecessary conflict because it prevents decisions based on temporary emotions or incomplete information. Instead of rushing to accuse, defend, or judge, you allow behavior to speak for itself. Thoughtful judgment requires balancing openness with caution. It means remaining willing to revise your opinion as new information appears, instead of becoming trapped by first impressions. Some people surprise you through steady integrity, while others slowly reveal motives that were difficult to notice at first. Careful observation keeps your attention focused on reality instead of assumptions. Rather than asking whether one action defines a person, you begin asking whether the same behavior appears again and again. As this habit becomes stronger, emotional reactions give way to clearer understanding, allowing your decisions to rest on consistent evidence. Instead of passing emotions or quick conclusions, the way people value something often depends on how available it appears. This idea extends beyond physical objects and reaches into everyday human behavior. Psychology describes part of this pattern through the principle of scarcity. When someone is constantly available, constantly seeking approval, or constantly trying to remain at the center of every conversation, their presence can gradually lose its impact. Familiarity itself is not the problem. The real issue begins when availability comes from a fear of being overlooked. People who chase attention often hand over control of their emotional well-being because their sense of value becomes tied to other people's responses. Every delayed message, every unanswered call, or every missed invitation suddenly feels deeply personal. Over time, this habit quietly weakens confidence because self-worth starts depending on external recognition instead of inner stability. People who carry quiet confidence usually approach attention differently. They do not feel the need to participate in every discussion or prove their importance through constant visibility. They understand that every conversation deserves a purpose, and every commitment deserves thoughtful consideration. Their presence feels valuable because it is intentional rather than automatic. This does not mean becoming distant or emotionally unavailable. Healthy relationships grow through consistency, honesty, and genuine care. The difference is that emotionally secure people choose where to invest their energy instead of giving it away without limits. They recognize that saying yes to everything often means saying no to their own priorities, peace of mind, and personal growth. Healthy personal boundaries play a central role in protecting that balance. A boundary is simply a clear understanding of what you will accept, what you will decline, and how you expect to be treated. Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls that keep people away. In reality, they create healthier relationships by establishing mutual respect. Without boundaries, frustration quietly builds because one person continues giving while another continues taking. Over time, resentment replaces appreciation. Clear boundaries prevent this cycle by allowing both people to understand each other's limits. They also reduce unnecessary conflict because expectations become easier to understand instead of remaining hidden beneath silent disappointment. Being selective with your time and attention changes the quality of every relationship you build. Instead of spreading yourself across every request, opinion, or distraction, you begin focusing on people and experiences that genuinely matter. Your conversations become more meaningful because you are fully present instead of emotionally exhausted. Your decisions become clearer because they reflect personal values rather than pressure from others. Most importantly, self-respect grows through every choice that honors your priorities without guilt. People naturally recognize when someone values their own time because that attitude influences the way they communicate, make commitments, and interact with the world. Quiet selectiveness does not create distance for the sake of appearing important. It creates space for healthier relationships built on respect, intention, and genuine appreciation, rather than constant availability. One of the clearest signs of emotional strength is knowing when a conversation has stopped serving any useful purpose. People often believe that staying in every argument proves confidence or determination. In reality, psychology suggests that remaining in a situation where respect has disappeared usually creates more emotional exhaustion than meaningful progress. Every healthy conversation depends on a basic level of mutual respect. Once that foundation is gone, words often become tools for winning instead of understanding. Voices become louder, patience becomes shorter, and the original issue slowly disappears beneath frustration and personal attacks. Continuing to fight in that environment rarely changes anyone's perspective because both sides become focused on defending themselves instead of listening. Choosing to walk away at that moment is not giving up. It is recognizing that meaningful communication cannot exist without respect. This principle is closely connected to healthy boundary setting. A boundary is more than saying no. It is deciding how you will respond when your values, dignity, or emotional well-being are repeatedly ignored. Some situations deserve another conversation because misunderstandings happen in every relationship. People make mistakes, speak carelessly, or react emotionally under pressure. Those moments can often be repaired through honest communication. The problem begins when disrespect becomes a repeated pattern instead of an isolated event. When someone consistently ignores your concerns, dismisses your feelings, or turns every discussion into a personal attack, remaining in the same cycle often damages confidence more than leaving it. Protecting your emotional well-being sometimes requires creating distance from behavior that refuses to change despite repeated opportunities. Walking away also creates something that endless arguments cannot provide. It creates clarity. During constant conflict, emotions stay active, making it difficult to think objectively. Stepping back allows the mind to settle and evaluate the situation without the pressure of immediate reactions. It becomes easier to recognize whether the relationship, conversation, or environment still supports your values, or whether it continues draining your emotional energy. This distance is not meant to punish another person. It exists to protect your ability to think clearly and make decisions based on reason rather than frustration. At the same time, walking away should never become an excuse to avoid every uncomfortable discussion. Healthy relationships require honest conversations about disagreements, expectations, and difficult emotions. Avoiding every conflict leaves important problems unresolved and weakens trust over time. Emotional maturity means recognizing the difference between a conversation that still has the potential for understanding and one that has become trapped in endless disrespect. That judgment grows stronger with experience, patience, and self-awareness. As you become more willing to leave situations that repeatedly violate your boundaries while remaining open to respectful dialogue, your choices begin reflecting quiet confidence instead of emotional impulse, allowing your actions to speak more powerfully than prolonged conflict ever could. The biggest mistake people make is believing that emotional restraint means surrender. Society often celebrates quick comebacks, loud opinions, and immediate reactions as signs of confidence. A person who stays calm is sometimes judged as fearful, passive, or unable to defend themselves. Psychology presents a very different picture. Real emotional restraint is an active choice, not the absence of courage. It requires awareness, patience, and discipline during moments when emotions are pushing for immediate action. Remaining calm while feeling anger is far more difficult than allowing anger to take control. Staying silent after an insult often demands greater inner strength than responding with another insult. This is why emotional self-control has always been one of the strongest indicators of maturity. It reflects the ability to lead your own mind before trying to influence any situation around you. Each of the 7 principles builds upon this foundation. Learning why people seek emotional reactions teaches you to recognize hidden triggers before they control your behavior. Mastering silence allows you to observe instead of rushing to fill every moment with words. Releasing the need to explain every decision frees you from depending on constant approval. Protecting your attention prevents small distractions from stealing valuable emotional energy. Observing consistent behavior instead of isolated moments helps you judge people with greater accuracy. Setting healthy boundaries reminds you that your time, focus, and emotional well-being deserve protection. Walking away from repeated disrespect reinforces that dignity grows stronger when your actions match your values. Together, these principles form a complete approach to emotional discipline. They work because each one strengthens the next, creating a mindset that values thoughtful decisions over automatic reactions. People often react first because the emotional brain moves faster than careful reasoning. A harsh comment, unfair criticism, or unexpected disappointment creates an immediate desire to respond. That first impulse feels urgent because emotions convince you that every second matters. Yet the strongest decisions usually appear after that emotional wave begins to settle. Choosing a response instead of following the first impulse changes everything. It allows facts to replace assumptions, observation to replace guesswork, and purpose to replace pride. Instead of asking how to win the current argument, you begin asking which response best supports your long-term goals, your relationships, and your peace of mind. This shift quietly changes the way others experience your presence. People recognize consistency because it creates trust. They notice someone who refuses to be controlled by every emotional situation. Calm behavior becomes predictable in the best possible way because it reflects stability rather than mood. Over time, influence grows through this steady pattern instead of dramatic displays of emotion. Emotional outbursts may capture attention for a moment, but self-control earns lasting respect because it demonstrates that your decisions belong to you, rather than to passing feelings. That quiet mastery becomes the invisible advantage behind every meaningful interaction, every difficult decision, and every lasting relationship built on confidence instead of impulse. Real power begins with mastering yourself before trying to influence anyone else. Throughout this video, you have seen that lasting strength is rarely built through loud reactions or constant confrontation. It grows through quiet discipline and thoughtful choices. Every principle connects to the same foundation. Do not react impulsively when emotions rise. Do not explain yourself when no explanation is needed. Ignore minor provocations that only waste your energy. Regulate your emotions before making important decisions. Observe people's consistent behavior before judging their character. Protect your time and attention, because both are among your most valuable resources. Walk away from situations where respect repeatedly disappears, instead of remaining trapped in endless conflict. These principles are not about controlling other people or trying to manipulate every situation. They are about developing emotional intelligence, patience, and self-control, so that your decisions come from wisdom instead of impulse. The person who remains calm under pressure usually sees more, understands more, and just makes better choices than the person who reacts to every emotional trigger. Over time, this quiet discipline creates stronger relationships, greater confidence, and a level of influence that cannot be achieved through intimidation or emotional outbursts. Now take a moment to reflect on your own life. Which of these 7 principles do you already practice naturally? Which one do you feel would make the biggest difference if you started applying it today? Small changes in the way you respond can completely transform the way people interact with you and the way you experience everyday challenges. If you found this video valuable, please take a second to like this video because it helps more people discover this content. Subscribe to our channel for more videos on psychology, human behavior, and emotional mastery. Finally, share your thoughts in the comments and tell us which of the 7 principles resonated with you the most. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.